Hello, Irish fans, and welcome to another edition of Dome and Domer. My name is Mike Brammer. Joining me tonight, Ed Jurdanek, as he's driving in his car on the way back from practice. Oh, he's got a little bit of light. Nah, that didn't work yet. We're just going to roll with this. Not that it matters. It's probably better that we can't see the expressions on your face, especially for this show. But so Saturday, 2:30 kickoff. UNLV's in town. 74 degrees. That stadium's gonna be rocking. But lo and behold, on the way to this game, a funny thing happened. and what we thought was going to be a 5-1 Notre Dame facing UNLV is now 3-3. And we're trying to figure out how we got here. So maybe Ed, I'll let you start. What's your overall take on how we got to 3-3?
Oh man, there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, I was thinking about it today, and I was thinking about sort of the mental aspects of the game, and I think that part of the learning process for a head coach, a new head coach, is having sort of the pulse of his team, and when you think about it, Notre Dame's best three performances this year so far have been away from home. They played pretty well in Columbus. They played well in Chapel Hill. They played well in Las Vegas. There might be a little connection there. Fewer distractions.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I think Brian Kelly had a way. I think good football coaches have a way of getting their teams locked in when it's time to take the field. It doesn't appear that Marcus Freeman's kind of cracked that code yet, because let's face it. I mean, you can't, there's physical advantages over Marshall and Stanford. There should be, I mean, they're just advantages that are too great to overlook. Statistical advantages. Those are just bad losses any way that you look at it. I also think, and I'll just give me 10 seconds on this. I also am really kind of curious about, this new sort of wave of coaching players, right? So Marcus Freeman has these personal relationships with all these players. It's something that he prides himself on. It's something that obviously helps in recruiting. I think we'd say that, coaches in an older school, they're more than willing to be, involved with their players. Many of them are after they've used up their eligibility.
Right.
But while they're on their rosters, they are very Machiavellian about their players. It is a very much a merit-based system. I'm not saying that that's not what, but it's just different, right? It's that I don't think, to give you, I mean, I don't think Lou Holtz, Nick Saban, Brian Kelly, handful of other coaches really give a damn about what's going on in their players' lives besides how they can use them to win football games. Now, after they graduate, right after they use up their eligibility, maybe there's some interest there. I would agree. They can play the game, right? But they're just not. They just don't care that much about much more than getting the most out of a player on the field.
Yeah. Well, so I think there's some look. I mean, I think at the beginning of the season, we all knew that okay, there's going to be a couple bumps because of a guy who's never had college football head coaching experience. You're going to run into that. And some of the obvious things we knew, like going for it all the time on fourth down inside field goal range. And you're going to eventually pay the price for that. And Stanford, I think, was indicative of that. If he kicks the field goal there, it's 7-3. You got points on the board. You're not going in at halftime with a blank. I mean, that just isn't going to happen. The other thing is it says something to your team. And I think this is, to your point, you got to know the psyche of your team. Okay, well, what message does that send if you're always going for it on fourth down? Are you the better team, or are you nervous that you may not be the better team on the football field? And therefore, let's go for it on fourth down. I mean, these are all the things that kind of come into play here. And I totally thought for sure that we were going to lose a game that we shouldn't because we got a brand new head coach without any coaching experience. I think the surprise is that it's not one game, it's now two, and we're only 6 games in. And so I
Right.
think, that's probably the frustration for Notre Dame fans at this moment. I'm a firm believer. I look, you got to give him this full year before we even start to assess him. And then secondly, I really think it takes 3 years before you know. I mean, at the end of 3 years, we are absolutely going to know what we're dealing with and whether or not he's got, the caliber of a college football head coach that can win in a big time program. By the third year, you're absolutely going to know that. You aren't going to know it 6 games into his first season. I mean, that's just not going to happen. We can have concerns at this moment, and I'm with you. I got him. I mean, hey, I don't know how you come out and start out with a 5-yard penalty on your home field, and that's the first game. I mean, that's one of probably the first things I would assume he addressed with the offense. But this is where what does Marcus Freeman do from this point forward? I mean, it's going to get interesting here to see what are the adjustments that he makes with the overall psyche of the team, because I think that is the big that's a problem at the moment. There's no way you can sit here and say that, you know what, Stanford's actually not that bad. And it's not that they're not that bad. They're clearly not that good of a football team. That's for sure. And it just doesn't make a lot of sense that we lost that football game. There's just no way. And so now, what does Marcus Freeman do come Saturday that's visible to the fans, that shows that, all right, we're going to at least these few things make some progression? And I think it's going to be a big challenge, because there's something weird is going on. You can't lose to Marshall and Stanford the way that you did and say, that's just the luck of the Irish. That happens every now and then.
Or it's
Something
execution.
behind the scenes is going on.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, to me, a lot of this is, you've seen football teams that are sort of mentally tough, and you've seen others that sort of struggle in that area. And to me, sort of the indices of that sort of mental strength when it comes to the game is performance on third down on both sides of the ball. We have trouble converting, and we have trouble stopping teams on third down.
Even third and long, third and 10 plus yards.
Yeah,
I think 50%
exactly.
of the time we're giving that up.
Yeah, no, there's kind of like a, and also, even in the games we played the best, there was a lack of a little bit of a killer instinct of putting a team away, right? We didn't quite close the door. And the other thing that has always really bothered me is how a defense plays after its offense goes down the field and scores. And even Saturday, when we took the lead 14-13, we immediately gave up a drive and points. It was a field goal. It wasn't a touchdown, but we immediately gave up a drive and points. And we've done that multiple times. And when I think back over the last 12 years, over the Kelly era, the teams that ended up with, bad records or left a bad taste in our mouth, those are the kind of things that they did. They weren't very effective in the red zone. They gave up drives and points after they scored. And they also did things like, I mean, you could almost a 4-yard pass on 3rd and 6, a sit route. It was almost the perfect ending to that game Saturday, because it sort of was a microcosm of everything we had seen leading up to that play.
Well, so, to that point, Ed, I think that's one of the concerning things that we saw Saturday, where there were multiple instances of that, not just that last play. So, we're fans, so we don't really know what goes on, but we kind of have a general sense of some real obvious things, like a player going through progressions pre-snap, right? So whatever you are, whether you're a running back, you're a quarterback, you're a lineman, when you step up to the line of scrimmage, you go through the same progressions that you do in your mind, or at least you should. And that is, okay, what is the play? What am I doing? What's the snap count? Am I going in motion? And so on that touchdown to Mayer, you got a junior and Chris Tyree who goes out to his whiteout standout position. And I got to believe that they go over this, that, okay, Chris, make sure you are not on the line of scrimmage. You are not covering up anybody like your tight end. And I'll bet you Bowman is doing the same thing. Part of his pre-snap progression is, I'm going out for a play, so let me look down to make sure I'm not
Evans.
covered up.
Yeah, Evans.
Yeah.
Evans. Bauman is
Evans,
hurt.
yeah, I'm sorry. Bauman's hurt. That's right. But my point is that these are like, come on, guys. These are obvious things that you do way before the season starts. Okay?
Right.
So
Right.
so that penalty cost us a touchdown. Whatever route he was running on that last play, I got to believe in my mind that he was supposed to get past the first down marker. I don't think he was trying to catch that curl route and then juke somebody and make the first down. I don't think that was the play. At least I hope it wasn't. But
And and to me, what we've been told to date is that, by Marcus Freeman, is that, Drew Pine, has an execution issue, but not a decision-making issue, that he makes the right decisions, right? But sometimes he doesn't execute the throw or execute well, I'm sorry, but, if this is your last gasp, you just can't throw the ball 4 yards when you need 6. I mean, that's a decision that a quarterback has to make. That's when he steps up to the line, he's like, the last thing I'm going to do is make a throw that puts my receiver in a spot that he's got to break 3 tackles to get a first down.
Right. Well, and I don't know, it's hard to say because, maybe Pine read the right coverage, and that is who's the most likely guy that's going to be open or have a chance. And he ran the wrong route. It could be that we don't know, but
no, we don't know. But I think a quarterback at that level, just with his eyes, should be able to tell if a guy's past the marker.
He clearly,
when he makes his break, in other words, when he sees whatever he sees, he knows where his guys are. And you're right. Maybe it's a failure, in the coaching, and to me, it's just. Unless you've got a particular look, you just can't throw the ball short of the marker in that situation. Yeah. But again, we don't know enough to know. But it was just so indicative of how they played the game. And you've got, listen, Audric Estime has been sort of a bright spot in this season so far. He's, I think, exceeded our expectations. He's not just a big brutish guy.
No.
He's got some wiggle. He's got pretty good hands. And he was absolutely, he was pissed off about dropping the ball going across the goal line in a game where it didn't matter. And he said all the right things after the game, and it made you think, like, this guy's not going to fumble for another year and a half.
Yeah, right.
But he was, he did not have good ball security.
No.
I know he was in midair, but that's when you're most vulnerable.
Yep. Yeah, and that's game recognition. That's knowing you're going in to win the football game. At point of contact, you're doubling up, both arms on the ball. Point of contact, last drive, the last thing you're doing is fumbling. So, again, I think we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. So we'll just assume that, it's a lack of execution, but there's some other things going on here that just seem to be pointing to issues where we are just not on the same page as a football team in the little details that matter. And so now it becomes, okay, what are we going to do to fix this? What is it that, and I hope to God.
Now you're halfway through a season and the injuries are piling up.
Yeah.
And,
so what, I think the smart thing about, really quick, and I just think that in my mind, at this point, I think what you got to do is go back to simple basics, simplify things. Don't have as many reads on every play and every option and in every call that you're making. Let's just go ahead and execute and not worry about trying to get the exact matchup that we're trying to get by putting a guy in motion or whatever. I think you got to throw that stuff out the window and just start to execute, especially against a team like UNLV.
Well, I think that's what's so. I think you're exactly right, and that's what's so frustrating. I think to us as fans, and again, you and I always talk about this. You know, the Holtzian era is our reference, but the games that 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 in that era that Notre Dame had a physical advantage in and a clear talent advantage, like they did against Marshall, like they did against Cal, like they did against Stanford. I mean, those were the games that Notre Dame won in that era, and literally they probably ran 5 different plays the entire game.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, because they had the physical advantage, the physical matchup, and maybe they didn't get 7 yards of carry in the first quarter, but they got 9 yards of carry in the third and fourth quarter.
Right.
And you know, maybe it was 17-7 at halftime, but it was 42-13 by the end of the game.
Right.
And you know, that was just, and the thing is that they knew those 5 plays, and they executed those 5 plays basically to perfection.
Yep.
And you know, and then what they would do is in bigger games, maybe they would expand the playbook a little bit because they need to. But it was it was doing a relatively limited number of things at a very, very high level.
Yeah.
You know, across the offensive line, and so I think you're right. I think, you know, that seemed to be a formula that worked pretty well in Chapel Hill and in Las Vegas. There were, you know, when those games were secured, they were secured by a relatively truncated playbook.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
and
at North Carolina, we started just running off tackle. I mean,
right.
there wasn't a lot to that. But now I love the fact that we got the 3 running backs that we got. I mean, that is a huge advantage to have guys that you can keep fresh.
Right.
But by the same token, I think we're getting a little too cute with wanting to have the exact type of play call for the exact type of running back that's in there. You know, I mean, I think you got to go with, if Estime's hot, let him have 3 series in a row. You know,
Sure.
let him get his feet underneath him and let him, you know, pound, and then give him a breather and let Tyree come in to counter that. And then Diggs comes back in, and then these guys are, you know, I don't have a problem at all spreading the carries out. I think that's totally to our advantage. It's a huge advantage to have a guy fairly fresh to be running. But by the same token, I just think that, you know, we have got to just simplify things and let these guys get some success and then slowly build on top of that and go ahead and expand the playbook after you've perfected these simple plays that we need to run. And against a team like UNLV, we just have to do that. That's just got to be what it is. So really quick, Ed, I wanted to ask you, I mean, a lot of chatter. I mean, I'm kind of glad we did this show Thursday instead of Monday, but almost everybody's saying the same thing. And I kind of think this is blown out of proportion, but yeah, I don't know. You tell me, but I don't think you can hang this on Tommy Rees. I mean, you can have some arguments in terms of a couple play calls here and there. I'm totally fine with that. But to say that the problem we got right now is Tommy Rees and that if we just switch offensive coordinators, everything's fixed, I'm not buying that at all. I don't see that in the least. And I don't know, maybe I'm on an island by myself, but to me, it's way bigger than Tommy Rees. That is not what's going on here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an element of it. I mean, the biggest disappointment to me is never going to be with Tommy Rees. It's not going to be the play calling. We have to remember that. I mean, he's the offensive coordinator. I mean, it's his job to have the offense ready to play, to execute at a high level, whatever terminology that you want to use. And what's really disappointing is after 2 consecutive performances where they seem to really have their act together, they didn't look very ready to play on. They didn't look to be well scripted. They didn't look to really sort of have an idea of what they wanted to do against Stanford. And I'm sorry, but if I'm the Stanford defensive coordinator and I watch the North Carolina game and I watch the game in Las Vegas, I have a very clear idea of what I want to do, and that's force Drew Pine to find receivers other than Michael Mayer. And in other words, put a fly in the ointment of the Notre Dame running game, bracket Mayer as much as possible, or make life a little bit difficult. And remember, Pine, we don't talk about this. Mayer is fantastic. He was targeted, I don't know how many times, but he only caught 6 or 7 balls. Like there were Pine forced the ball to him a handful of times because of either a lack of confidence in his other receivers or because they weren't getting open. And he also made some terrible throws when they did get open. So that's the part that sort of, I think Notre Dame was pretty easy to figure out on Saturday, and that does sit at Tommy's. That is his responsibility. So, I don't know. I think the other thing is that, it's really time. I feel terrible that Eli Reardon is out for the season now, because I think he's a guy that they should have targeted, that they should have used a little bit more. They should have incorporated into the offense a little bit. I mean, maybe the strongest receiver group is your tight end. So why not throw to Stays and Reardon and Evans a little bit more on that game Saturday, if Michael Mayer is being double and triple teamed at times.
Spread them out, even get him in and spread them out in the slot. I mean, if that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do. I do think that it's very popular to get on this Tobias Merriweather bandwagon.
Yeah. But the fact of the matter is that we watched him play a handful of plays, and he's so clearly gifted athletically. Yeah. And maybe he doesn't know the play, but draw something on a napkin and get him. We need. Right. We don't have playmakers on offense.
No, we don't.
If you've got one who happens to be a freshman, figure out a way, and they did. They threw 2 balls to him. One of them was a poor throw, and one of them was a touchdown.
Well, both of them he was open. I think that right there tells you something. Both of them he's open. I agree. I agree with you. I think you got to give him. He can learn 3 routes. Okay, if he can just master 3 routes, get him in the game and have him run those 3 different routes. And at least get him the football a couple times.
And people talk about the risks with freshmen. Well, he has the kind of body where if you make a decent throw, you're either going to have a play made or an incompletion, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't have to. It's not like you're throwing to a Smurf. It's not like you're throwing to there's way more risk to me when you're throwing to a Lenzy or a Styles. Again, if you put the ball in a place where the guy can only your player can catch it. So I don't know. They've got to. I'm actually a little bit more sort of worried about how we're getting thin on defense, and I think you're going to see a lot more Prince Collie, just because it doesn't seem like we're not forcing any turnovers. Foskey has been a disappointment. I love playing freshmen. We all love playing freshmen. Freshmen are the shiny new toys, but Mickey and Ben Morrison have been, they've struggled. They're learning on the fly, and it's not pretty sometimes. Our safety play is it's okay. Brandon Joseph is a nice player, but I think that we're gonna really run into some trouble. We don't have Lacey anymore. We're a little bit banged up. I tend to agree. Both sides of the ball have issues for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think that what's going to be real obvious is we're seeing 8 in the box until we figure that out. So you're going to see that Saturday. You're going to see it against Syracuse, and until we can start executing. And if you're not throwing to your wide receivers, well, man, boy, are you hamstringing yourself against 8 in the box. And Tommy Rees better figure that one out real quick. Maybe he's got to do a couple of those tight end quick hitches or tight end, screens, or not tight end, but wide receiver screens. I mean, we've got to do something to get the ball out quickly and out against that 8-man front, because you're just going to continue to see that all day long, and that's going to be a problem for us. I don't know. That to me seems like a real obvious one. But I tend to agree with you. The thing that's got me a little concerned is I don't see the defense continually holding people below 20 points, because they are thin right now. I mean, Tariq Bracy's probably going to play, but I'm going to bet my life he's not 100%.
Right.
And so he's going to be tender, and he's clearly the only lockdown guy we got. And like you say, with Lacey gone, we're probably going to end up giving up some points. UNLV, I mean, God forbid we can't manage to win that football game. But anyways, Syracuse is going to be a real challenge. I mean, we got to put some points on the board, and if we don't, that's going to not be good.
Yeah, but you know what I think? I think that this team still has it has talent. It has fight in it. It's just one of those really uneven seasons where it wouldn't surprise me if they win 2 out of 3, Clemson, USC, and Syracuse.
Yeah, I could see that.
And I could also see us being lining up for a game-winning 47-yard field goal against BC, and hit the crossbar, and it's just there's gonna be there, or I could see all of a sudden it's like Navy's got 300 rushing yards and we're fighting for our life in the fourth quarter. It's just one of those kinds of years that are very, very frustrating, because you're right. This should be a 5-1 football team right now. There's just no doubt about it.
Yeah, absolutely. They should be, for sure. And we're not, and so be it. But look, I think it's way too early to be throwing in the towel. This is a decent football team. Like you say, I could totally feasible, not out of the realm of possibility. They could beat Syracuse and then maybe steal Clemson or USC. Totally feasible that could happen. It's those other games that they got to hold their own. It's those other games that they got to control and not let it get away from them. And hopefully what we see, if possible, is us coming out Saturday and kind of executing from the get-go. I mean, we got to put some points on the board in the first quarter. I think anything less than that's going to be pretty disappointing, because those first 20 plays are scripted.
Yeah, I mean, we got pretty spoiled because we, for better or for worse, we figured out how not to play down to our level of competition under Brian Kelly over the last several years. The problem is we had trouble on the opposite end. We also had trouble playing up to our competition.
That's right.
When we played a top team, but listen, I think if Notre Dame fans had their choice, they'd rather win all the games that they should win and have a puncher's chance in those other ones. This feels worse. But it's also more fixable, right?
Yeah.
Because the other problem is you really have to close the talent gap, which indications are that hold this class together, we make some progress there. But a coach and a team have to sort of figure out how to come locked in these games against I don't want to say inferior opponents, but anytime there's a double-digit point spread, that means something. And we had didn't we have it was more than 20 against Marshall, I think, was the spread.
Yeah, 22, I think. And then, 14 or 17?
Yep.
I think it's 17.
Yep.
I mean, this game's 25. I don't know what your prediction is, but I'm going with 35-20 is what Notre Dame winning 35-20. But they're a 25-point favorite, I think, right now.
Yeah.
I don't see that.
Yeah, I don't know. Listen, I mean, it's a Peacock game. The weather's going to be nice. There's going to be people who choose to do yard work instead of going to the game. No, I mean, I'm serious.
I agree with you.
I did not go into the game Saturday, but by all accounts, we started out slow, and so did the crowd. And
I heard it was dead. I heard it was absolutely dead Saturday.
Yeah, and and that's a problem. And so this may be one of those years where, maybe the team chemistry is actually, pretty good, and it shows itself, in these road trips. Um, but home is a struggle. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they gotta play for each other. It's team sports are like that, right? I mean,
Yep.
you've got to
Oh,
figure it out.
that team is all about themselves. It's all inside the locker room now. They're the only guys that can count on each other. This is where you buckle down and you just say, "Hey guys, forget the outside world. We can't pay attention to that anymore. It's all about us now."
And
And
I think that the things that are gonna, are potential sort of issues are, Mayor Patterson Foskey electing to,
yeah,
throw
not play.
throw it in early, right? Not play.
Yep. Yep.
Or losing a couple key recruits, or then you get kind of like a bad mojo going, and you're literally like just fighting to hang on till the end and focusing on the spring and 2023, and that's not good either.
No.
But you got to start somewhere, and that's Saturday, and that's winning convincingly. And then you're probably going to be playing. You're either going to be playing an undefeated Syracuse team and a one-loss Clemson team, or you're going to be playing a one-loss Syracuse team and an
Yeah.
undefeated Clemson team. So
Yep.
you've got a
Yep.
chance to. It sucks to be a Notre Dame football fan and know that your favorite team is a spoiler.
Right.
But that's our lot in life this year. So let's go do
Yeah,
it.
at least for this year at the moment. Yeah, no doubt. Well, it's all right. Hope for better days. Never fun doing these shows when we're 500 halfway through the season, but
Yeah,
it is what it is.
Probably get more listeners though, so that people can.
Yeah, I know. For whatever reason, people need to drown their sorrows more than they need to get excited. So, for any event, we always seem to do better on these losses. Maybe everybody else is trying to figure out, man, I wonder if anybody else knows what's going on. Tough one, but we'll see. All right, we'll leave it there. You've been listening to Dome and Domer, an online conversation about Notre Dame sports from a fan's perspective. For Ed Jordanek, I'm Mike Brammer. Thanks for listening.